Let us begin, dear listener, in stillness. Find yourself in a comfortable place, perhaps beneath soft blankets, perhaps in a quiet room where the world's demands cannot reach you. Take a gentle breath. Let your shoulders soften. Release, for now, the weight of all that has been asked of you today. We gather here, in this quiet hour, to explore a question that Mary Oliver posed to the world, a question so gentle and yet so revolutionary that it has awakened countless souls to the secret of true living.
That question was this: tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? But before we arrive at that question, before we understand its true power, we must first understand the woman who asked it. Mary Oliver was not famous in the way that many poets are famous. She did not seek the spotlight. She did not perform in grand halls or attend glittering ceremonies. Instead, she did something far more radical. She paid attention. She walked through the world, through marshes and forests, along edges of ponds and wild rivers, and she noticed. She truly noticed. And in that noticing, in that deep, deliberate attention, she discovered something that most of us spend our entire lives searching for. She discovered how to be alive. This is the gift we have come to receive tonight. Not a complicated philosophy. Not a system that requires great effort or special knowledge. Simply this, the revelation that wonder is available to us right now, in this very moment, if we know how to pay attention. Consider for a moment how we move through our ordinary days. We woke up. We rush. We think about what comes next while we are still during what is happening now. Our minds are like birds that have forgotten how to land, always searching for the next branch, the next thought, the next distraction. We eat breakfast while thinking about work. We drive while planning conversations. We walk through beautiful places while staring at small glowing screens.
And in this constant reaching forward, in this perpetual dissatisfaction with the present moment, we miss the most precious thing of all, the gift of now. Mary Oliver understood this. She had learned through decades of quiet observation and spiritual practice a truth that the ancient Buddhist teachers also knew, that suffering arises not from what is happening in this moment, but from our resistance to what is happening, our constant grasping for what might be, and our endless regret about what has been. The Buddha taught that craving and aversion, our desperate want things to be different than they are, is the root of suffering. Mary Oliver discovered this truth through poetry and through nature. She realized that when we truly pay attention, when we settle into genuine presence, the quality of our entire lives transforms. And yet, this is not a story about becoming a better person. It is not a story about self-improvement or achievement or acquiring more knowledge.
This is a story about coming home to yourself. It is about discovering that the life you have been seeking has been waiting for you all along, quietly, patiently, in the present moment. Listen closely, for there is great comfort in this truth. You do not need to change who you are. You do not need to become someone different, someone more accomplished, someone more worthy. You simply need to wake up to what is already here. You simply need to pay attention to the ordinary miracle of your own existence. Mary Oliver was born in 1935 in a small town in Ohio. Her childhood was not easy. She experienced loneliness, a sense of displacement, and a home life that was, by her own account, difficult. And yet, and this is crucial to understanding her gifts, she did not become bitter. She did not turn away from the world. Instead, she turned toward it with an almost desperate tenderness. She began to walk. She noticed. And in the small things of the natural world, she discovered a kind of solace that no human could provide. There is something deeply moving about this, is there not? Here was a child who experienced pain, as we all do, and instead of building walls, she built bridges made of attention, of genuine interest, of what Buddhists call loving kindness. She developed the capacity to be present with what is difficult, with what is lonely, and to find, even in that loneliness, a profound beauty and purpose. This is where our journey begins, dear listener. Not in some distant past, but in the recognition that you too have this capacity. You too can transform your relationship with suffering through attention. You too can discover wonder in ordinary moments. And in doing so, you can begin to understand what it truly means to live. As we settle deeper into these teachings, let your breathing become slow and natural. There is no need to force anything. Simply allow yourself to be present with these words, these ideas as they unfold. Like water finding its way downhill, your consciousness can simply follow the gentle current of this narrative, moving deeper into rest, into peace, into the timeless wisdom of Mary Oliver's gift. We begin now with a question. What does it mean to pay attention? In the Buddhist tradition, there is a word that holds profound significance: mindfulness. In Pali, the original language of Buddhist texts, this word is sati, which literally means to remember. But it does not mean remembering the past. Instead, it means remembering to be present. It means to return moment after moment to the simple fact of what is happening right now. Mary Oliver, though she may not have studied Buddhism formally, understood this practice intimately. She practiced it every single day through her walks in nature and through her writing. She practiced it through what she called paying attention, a phrase so simple that we often miss its revolutionary power. When we say, pay attention, we use the word pay as if attention were currency. And indeed it is. Attention is perhaps the most valuable currency we possess. We give it away constantly, to our phones, to our worries, to our endless stream of thoughts about what should be different. We pay our attention without even thinking about it, without considering that we are spending the most precious resource we have. Mary Oliver, in contrast, became very deliberate about where she paid her attention. She chose to invest it in the natural world. She chose to notice things. A toad crouched in the grass. The way light fell through leaves. The sound of a cardinal's call. The texture of bark on an ancient oak tree. The small dramas of insects and birds going about their ordinary lives. This was not idle observation. This was not mere distraction. This was spiritual practice of the highest order. In Zen Buddhism, there is a concept called shakuntala, which means just sitting. It refers to a form of meditation where you sit without an object of focus, simply being present with whatever arises. Similarly, Mary Oliver's walks were not walks towards something. They were walks of presence. She was not trying to achieve enlightenment or become a better poet. She was simply being present, and in that presence poetry arose naturally, like water rising from a spring. Let us understand the science of this for a moment, for science and spirituality often point to the same truths. When we are truly present, when we are genuinely paying attention to something, our brainwave patterns shift. The constant chatter of the default mode network, the part of our brain that thinks about past and future, quiets down. Our parasympathetic nervous system activates the system that governs rest and digest functions. Our cortisol levels decrease. Our heart rate slows.
We become physiologically calm and receptive. This is why practices of attention, whether called mindfulness, meditation, or poetry, are so healing. They are not healing because we are thinking our way into wellness. They are healing because we are stepping out of the constant thinking and into presence. We are allowing our nervous systems to reset. We are giving our minds permission to stop the endless reaching and grasping. And yet, there is a gentle paradox here that we must understand. Attention is not about forcing yourself to focus. It is not about straining or struggling. In fact, that very straining is the opposite of true attention.
True attention is relaxed. It is interesting. It is like the way a cat watches a bird. Completely present, completely engaged, but not tense. The cat does not force itself to watch. Watching simply happens because there is genuine interest, genuine curiosity. This is the quality that Mary Oliver brought to her walks in nature. She approached the world with what Buddhists call beginner's mind, a quality of openness and wonder as if seeing something for the first time, even if she had seen it 1,000 times before. Every cardinal was a new cardinal. Every sunrise was a new sunrise. Every moment was fresh and alive with possibility. In one of her poems, The Journey, Mary Oliver wrote about a moment when she finally had the courage to turn away from the voices of others telling her what she should do, and instead to listen to her own true voice calling her toward her authentic life. The poem ends with the image of her walking, despite the pleas of those around her, into her own song. This is what attention looks like when it is true. It is the ability to hear your own voice beneath all the noise, the authentic calling of your own soul beneath all the should and musts. In Buddhist practice, this is called right listening. It is listening not just with your ears, but with your entire being. It is listening with an open heart, without judgment, without the constant internal commentary that usually accompanies our perception. It is listening as if your life depends on it because, in a very real sense, it does. Consider for a moment how you listen in a typical conversation. Perhaps your mind is already thinking about how you will respond. Perhaps you are planning what you will say next. Perhaps you are judging what the other person is saying, comparing it to your own beliefs. In this state, you are not truly listening. You are simply waiting for your turn to speak. You are performing presence while being absent. Now consider how you might listen if you truly cared deeply about someone. If someone you loved shared something important with you, you might find yourself naturally slipping into a state of full presence. Your defenses would be lower. Your internal commentary would quiet. You would simply be there with them, genuinely interested in what they were saying, genuinely open to being moved by their words.
This is the quality of attention that Mary Oliver brought to the natural world. She loved the world.
She loved the small things, the insects, the stones, and the grass. And in loving them, she naturally paid genuine attention to them. This attention, in turn, opened her heart even more. It deepened her love. It created a beautiful cycle. Love leading to attention, and attention deepening love. This is what the Dalai Lama calls compassion. Not a feeling of pity or superiority, but a deep, genuine interest in the well-being and existence of another being. It is what the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh called mindful living. Living in such a way that you are present to and genuinely aware of the precious nature of all existence. Now, as we sit here in this quiet space, we invite you to practice this form of attention. Not in a forced way but naturally. Bring your attention to your breath for a moment. Not to change it or improve it, but simply to notice it.
Notice the cool air as it enters your nostrils. Notice the slight expansion of your chest and belly as you breathe in. Notice the warm air as you exhale. Notice the pause between each breath. There is nothing you need to do. Simply notice. Simply pay attention. In this simple act of noticing your breath, you are practicing the same art that Mary Oliver practiced throughout her life. You are stepping out of constant thinking and into presence. You are aligning yourself with a truth that all the great wisdom traditions have recognized, that life is available to you right now, at this very moment, if you know how to pay attention. The Buddha taught that the present moment is the only place where life exists. The past exists only in memory. The future exists only in imagination. The only moment where anything is happening is now. And yet, how much of our lives do we spend somewhere other than here? How much of our precious time do we spend in regret about what has been or anxiety about what might be? Mary Oliver understood this. She wrote, "Attention is the beginning of devotion." What a beautiful statement. Attention is not something you do grudgingly. Attention is the beginning of love. Attention is how you show reverence for life. As you continue to listen to this narrative, let your attention become more and more settled. Let it rest gently on the words, on the ideas, on the spaces between the words. Let there be no strain. Let there be only natural curiosity, a gentle interest, a quiet presence. You are learning, in this very moment, the practice that Mary Oliver devoted her entire life to teaching. And in learning it, you are beginning to wake up to your own wild and precious life. These teachings are not beliefs that you must adopt. Rather, they are observations about how things are. They are discovered through direct experience and contemplation. Mary Oliver discovered these teachings not in temples or monasteries, though she had great respect for all spiritual traditions. She discovered them in the natural world. The forest was her temple. The marsh was her monastery. The creatures and plants and stones were her teachers. In one of her most famous poems, Wild Geese, Mary Oliver writes, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." This poem is a direct teaching of Dharma. It is a rejection of guilt and self-condemnation that so many of us carry. It is a teaching that your basic nature is fundamentally good, and that to live according to your true nature is not selfish or wrong. It is exactly right. Where did Mary Oliver learn this teaching? Not from a book, though she was well read. She learned it from the natural world. She learned it from observing animals. She wrote, "A bird doesn't worry about how to build the best nest. A deer doesn't feel guilty about being a deer. A goose doesn't question whether it should fly south. The animals simply live according to their nature. They follow their instincts. They do what they must do to survive and thrive, and in this simple living, there is a kind of perfection. This is the Dharma of non-resistance, or what is called in Buddhism, letting go, or non-clinging. When we struggle against our own nature, when we try to be someone other than who we are, we create suffering. When we accept ourselves as not as an excuse for harmful behavior, but as a foundation from which to grow, we find peace. The Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, which form the foundation of Buddhist philosophy. The first noble truth is that suffering exists. The second is that suffering has a cause, craving, aversion, and ignorance. The third is that suffering can cease. The fourth is that there is a path leading to the cessation of suffering. This path involves cultivating virtue, concentration, and wisdom. Mary Oliver taught the same truths through poetry and through her observation of nature. She showed us that much of our suffering comes from our resistance to what is, from our constant grasping for something different. And she showed us that when we let go, when we surrender to what is, when we become present and attentive, our suffering diminishes. Consider the teaching of impermanence, which is central to Buddhist philosophy. In Sanskrit, this is called arnika. Everything that arises passes away. Nothing is permanent. Everything is constantly changing. This might sound depressing at first, but it is liberating. If everything is impermanent, then your current suffering will pass. Your current anxiety will pass. Your current loneliness will pass. But so too will your joy, your excitement, your sense of accomplishment. And knowing this, we can hold all of our experiences more lightly. We can appreciate the present moment knowing that it will not last, knowing that this very breath is unique and will never come again. Mary Oliver wrote extensively about this. She wrote about seasons changing, about the death and rebirth that happens constantly in nature. She wrote about loss and grief, but not in a way that was bitter or hopeless. She wrote about loss as part of the natural order, as something to be witnessed and even welcomed as part of the cycle of existence. In her poem In Blackwater Woods, she writes about the end of summer, the falling leaves, the dying light. It is a poem about impermanence, but it ends with this instruction. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. This is advanced spiritual teaching. This is the path to liberation from suffering. It is not about becoming cold or detached. It is about loving fully and completely while also maintaining the wisdom of non-attachment. It is about being present with what is, without grasping desperately to keep it from changing. Where did Mary Oliver learn this? From the natural world. She watched death constantly. She watched predators hunting prey. She watched seasons turning. She watched beings arise and pass away. And by witnessing these things repeatedly, with attention and with an open heart, she developed wisdom. In Buddhist practice, there is a meditation called death meditation, or marana sati. Rather than avoiding the thought of death, practitioners deliberately contemplate their own mortality. This might seem morbid, but it has a profound effect. When you truly contemplate the fact that you will die, that your time is limited, that this very breath might be your last, suddenly the petty concerns of daily life lose their grip on you. Suddenly you realize what matters. Suddenly you want to spend your time in meaningful ways. Suddenly you want to be present because you realize that there is no guarantee of another moment. She wrote, "One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice." She is speaking about the moment of awakening, the moment when you stop living the life that others have decided for you and you begin to live your own life. And what activates this awakening? The recognition of impermanence, the recognition of impermanence, the recognition that you don't have forever, the recognition that your time is precious and limited. Now, there is another teaching from nature that Mary Oliver repeatedly demonstrated, the teaching of interconnectedness. In Buddhism, this is called dependent origination or pratitya samutpada. It means that nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises depending on conditions. Everything is connected to everything else. Mary Oliver's poems constantly showed this interconnection. She wrote about how the food chain connects predator and prey. She wrote about how plants depend on soil, which is made from the decay of previous plants and animals. Modern science has confirmed what the ancient wisdom traditions knew, that we are not separate from nature. We are part of it. The atoms in your body were once part of stars. The oxygen you breathe was produced by plants. The water you drink has cycled through countless beings. You are not separate from nature. You are an expression of nature. Your consciousness, your thoughts, your awareness are not something separate from the natural world. They are part of the natural world. When you truly understand this, something shifts in your consciousness. When you truly understand this, something shifts in your consciousness. You no longer feel alone or separate. You feel connected. You feel part of something vast and beautiful. You feel less important in one sense because you are not the center of the universe, and more important in another sense because you are part of the universe itself, and therefore your actions matter, your presence matters, your existence matters. This is the teaching that Mary Oliver wanted to convey. She wanted us to understand that we belong here. We are not mistakes or accidents. We are part of the intricate web of existence. We have a place. We have a purpose. And what is our role in this interconnected web? It is to be awake. It is to pay attention. It is to pay attention. It is to witness and appreciate and participate in the great dance of existence. It is to love, because love is what holds everything together. Love is the force that binds all beings to one another. Love is the recognition of our fundamental connection. As we continue to rest in this narrative, begin to feel this connection. Become aware that the air you are breathing is the same air that has been breathed by countless beings throughout history. Become aware that the earth that supports your body is the same earth that supports all life. Become aware that you are not separate from the natural world, but an integral part of it. And in this awareness, let yourself feel held, supported, loved by the earth itself. Mary Oliver's gift to us is this. She showed us that the natural world is not something out there separate from us, that we must go to escape. The natural world is what we are, and in paying attention to it, in honoring it, in loving it, we are paying attention to honoring and loving ourselves. There is a particular quality of consciousness that children possess that adults often lose. It is the quality of wonder. When a child sees something new, truly new or new to them, their face lights up. Their eyes widen. They become completely absorbed. For a moment, they forget themselves. They are entirely present with the object of their wonder. Mary Oliver, throughout her entire life, maintained this capacity for wonder. She refused to let it be trained out of her by the practical, efficient, goal-oriented culture that surrounds us. And in maintaining this wonder, she made a revolutionary statement that wonder is not childish or naive. Wonder is the highest form of consciousness. Wonder is the foundation of wisdom, spirituality, and authentic living. Consider the word wonder itself. It has two meanings. The first is amazement or awe, the feeling you get when confronted with something vast and beautiful and beyond your comprehension. These two meanings are intimately connected. Awe and curiosity naturally arise together. When you are truly in a state of wonder, you are both awed and curious. You are both humble and engaged. In Buddhist philosophy, there is a practice called mudita, which is often translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy. It is the ability to take genuine delight in the beauty, joy, and goodness of others and of the natural world. It is not a passive feeling, but an active appreciation. It is wonder in its fullest expression. Mary Oliver embodied mudita constantly. She was delighted by small things. An ant carrying a seed, a spider's web covered in dew, the curve of a fern frond. These were not distractions from her real work. These moments of wonder were her real work. They were what she lived for. And yet, we live in a culture that often dismisses wonder as frivolous. We are taught to grow up, to be practical, to focus on productive pursuits. We are taught that wonder is something you outgrow. And in losing our wonder, we lose something essential to humanity. We become hollow. We go through the motions of living without truly living. Mary Oliver saw this. She saw how people rush through their lives, missing the extraordinary miracle of existence. She saw how we treat the natural world as a resource to be exploited rather than as a teacher and a gift. She saw how we have become numb, going through our days without truly seeing, without truly being present. And so she wrote. She wrote as an act of revolution. She wrote to wake people up. She wrote, "You do not have to be the sky doing its whole job. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." This is a poem about permission. It is a revolutionary act to give yourself permission to slow down, to notice, to wonder, to love what you love. In our culture of achievement and efficiency, this is radical. This is subversive. This is necessary. The question that haunts our modern age is this: why, despite all our technological advances, all our medical progress, all our accumulated knowledge, are we less happy, less at peace, less alive than our ancestors might have been? Why do we suffer so much from anxiety and depression and a pervasive sense of meaninglessness? One answer is this: because we have lost our capacity for wonder. We have become so efficient, so rational, so goal-oriented that we have forgotten how to simply be. We have forgotten that the purpose of life is not to accomplish more or accumulate more. The purpose of life is to be alive, to be present, to experience this precious gift of consciousness that we have been given. Mary Oliver understood this. Mary Oliver understood this. She lived deliberately and simply. She walked every morning. She observed nature with intense attention. She wrote, she read, she loved her longtime partner. She spent time with close friends. She did not accumulate wealth or pursue fame. She was not interested in these things. She was interested only in being alive, truly alive, in each moment. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a concept called satori, or kensho, which refers to moments of sudden enlightenment or awakening. These are moments when the veil of illusion falls away, and you see the true nature of reality. Often, satori is described as seeing reality as it actually is, which paradoxically feels completely fresh and new, even though it has always been this way. It is like suddenly waking up from a dream and realizing that the dream was not real. Mary Oliver experienced such moments. Her poems often describe them. In these moments, she stopped seeing nature as separate from her. She stopped seeing the world as a backdrop for her human concerns. She saw it as it is, alive, sacred, interconnected, and fundamentally mysterious. And in these moments of wonder, something else happened. Suffering fell away. Not because her circumstances changed, but because her relationship to her circumstances changed. She realized that the search for happiness through accumulation, through achievement, through being someone other than who she was, all of that was a dead end. True happiness, true peace, comes from stepping into the present moment and receiving it as the gift it is. This is what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught that we suffer because we chase after a version of happiness that does not exist. We chase after permanent satisfaction, but everything is impermanent. We chase after security, but life is fundamentally uncertain. In chasing these illusions, we miss the simple happiness that is available in the present moment. Mary Oliver, through her observation of nature, came to understand the same truth. And she wanted to share it with us. And she wanted to share it with us. She wanted us to wake up. She wanted us to see. She wanted us to understand that we are alive right now, that this moment is real and precious and fleeting, and that we must not waste it chasing illusions. It is simpler than you might think. It begins with stopping. It begins with slowing down. It begins with stepping outside, or looking out a window, or simply pausing in the middle of your day and noticing something, really noticing it. Notice the play of light and shadow. Notice the texture of something. Notice the small sounds that are always present but usually unheard. Notice the miracle that you are alive, that you have consciousness, that you can perceive all of this beauty and mystery around you. In this very moment, if you pause this listening and look around, you will see something that has been there all along, something that you have not noticed before or have not noticed fully. It might be a pattern in the wood grain. It might be the play of shadows. It might be a sound in the distance. It might be a feeling in your body that you have been too busy to notice. This is the beginning of revolution. This is the beginning of awakening. This is Mary Oliver's gift, the revelation that wonder is not something you must travel to find. It is not something you must achieve or earn. It is available right now, at this moment, if you know how to pay attention. As you rest here in this quietness, let yourself feel wonder rising in you. Let yourself feel awe for the simple fact of your own existence. Let yourself feel gratitude for this moment, for this breath, for this opportunity to be alive. You are participating in the greatest miracle that exists. You are conscious. You are aware. You can perceive and appreciate the beauty of existence. This is not something to take for granted. This is something to celebrate, to honor, to feel deep gratitude for. Mary Oliver felt this gratitude every single day. It poured out of her like light, and she wanted to pass it on to us. She wanted us to feel it too. To understand Mary Oliver more deeply, we must understand her relationship with solitude. For Mary Oliver was in many ways a solitary person. She spent much of her time alone, walking in nature. She did not seek the company of crowds. She did not crave recognition or applause. This might seem like a lonely life to some. In our culture, we often equate solitude with loneliness, and we pity those who spend time alone. We encourage constant connection, constant activity, constant engagement with others. We fear silence. We fear our own company. We fill every moment with stimulation and noise. But Mary Oliver understood something that contemplative traditions have always known, that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is painful. It is the feeling of disconnection and separation. But solitude can be profound and nourishing. Solitude is the space in which we come to know ourselves. It is the space in which we hear our own voice beneath all the noise of others' expectations and demands. In Buddhist practice, this is recognized as well. Monks and nuns often spend long periods in solitary retreat, not because they are running away from society, but because they are seeking deeper knowledge of themselves and of the nature of reality. In these periods of silence and solitude, profound insights arise. The mind becomes clearer. The heart opens. We begin to see our own patterns, our own conditioning, our own deepest truths. Mary Oliver sought this solitude deliberately. She protected it fiercely. She wrote about the importance of a room of one's own, echoing Virginia Woolf. She protected time each day for walking, for thinking, for writing. She did not believe that this was selfish. She believed, correctly, that in adapting to her own inner life, she was better able to serve others and better able to understand life itself. And yet Mary Oliver was not cut off from human connection. She had a long and devoted partnership with Molly Malone Cook, a photographer. She had close friendships. She engaged with her readers. She cared deeply about justice and the environment. So it was not that she rejected human connection. She honored her need for solitude while also engaging authentically with others. This is an important teaching for our time. We live in an age of unprecedented connection. We are connected digitally to thousands of people, and yet we are profoundly lonely. We are constantly available but never truly present. We have many friends but often few genuine relationships. The solution is not to abandon connection, but to change the nature of our connection. We must learn to be present when we are with others, truly present, not distracted or partial. And we must also honor our need for solitude, for time alone to think, to feel, to simply be, without having to perform or maintain a particular image. Mary Oliver's life shows us that this is possible. She modeled a life of balance. She wrote extensively during those quiet morning walks. She thought deeply, she paid attention, and then she engaged with the world through her work, through her teaching, through her writing. The Buddhist concept that relates to this is prajna, which is often translated as wisdom or transcendent wisdom. Prajna is not merely intellectual knowledge. It is a deeper understanding that comes from direct experience and from seeing through the illusions that conditions usually create. It is wisdom that comes from knowing yourself deeply. Mary Oliver spent her life cultivating prajna. She looked deeply into her own heart. She examined her own patterns and fears and desires. She did not avoid this self-examination. She did this through her writing, through her walking, through her meditation practice. And this is available to you too, dear listener. In fact, it is essential. We cannot truly understand the world if we do not understand ourselves. We cannot truly love if we do not know ourselves. We cannot truly be present if we are constantly running from ourselves. Consider for a moment, what are you avoiding? When you are alone, without distraction, without something to occupy your attention, what thoughts and feelings arise? Many of us will do almost anything to avoid sitting alone with ourselves. We reached for our phones. We fill the silence. But what if you did not? What if you sat in silence and let yourself feel whatever is there to be felt? Not to fix it or change it or make it go away, but simply to acknowledge it, to witness it, to understand it. This is one of the most transformative practices you can engage in. Mary Oliver wrote about this too. She wrote about the necessity of loneliness, of silence, of facing yourself fully. And she wrote about the gifts that come from this facing: self-knowledge, authenticity, freedom, wisdom. Now, we must be careful here not to glorify isolation or to suggest that if you are struggling with loneliness, the solution is simply to embrace it. Clinical depression and genuine loneliness are real conditions that can cause great suffering. What we're speaking about here is something different. We are speaking about the deliberate cultivation of solitude as a spiritual practice. We are speaking about the difference between being alone and being lonely. If you are struggling with true loneliness, we encourage you to reach out, to connect with others, to seek help if needed. But alongside connection, cultivate solitude. Find moments of quiet. Sit with yourself. Listen to your own heart. Ask yourself the questions that matter. Who am I? What do I love? What is it I plan to do with my one wild and precious life? Mary Oliver asked herself these questions every single day. And in asking them, she lived an authentic life. And in asking them, she lived an authentic life. She lived according to her true values and her true nature. She did not waste her time on things that did not matter. She did not pretend to be someone she was not. This is the gift of solitude. This is the gift of quiet. This is what Mary Oliver received from her long walks and her quiet mornings: the ability to know herself, and in knowing herself, the ability to live truly. In the Buddha's teaching, there is a phrase, be a light unto yourself. It means that you cannot ultimately rely on anyone else to tell you the truth about yourself or about life. You must discover these truths for yourself through direct experience. Yes, teachers and teachings can point the way, but the journey is yours alone. Mary Oliver undertook this journey. She was a light unto herself. She did not follow the path that society laid out for her. She did not try to be what others thought she should be. She listened to her own voice, and she followed that voice, and in doing so, she lived an extraordinary life. And she invites us to do the same. She is not asking us to live like her, to spend our days walking in nature and writing poetry. She is not asking us to live like her, to spend our days walking in nature and writing poetry. She is inviting us to know ourselves as she knew herself, to listen to our own inner voice, to honor our own deepest truth, to have the courage to live according to that truth, even when it is difficult, even when others do not understand. As you continue to rest in this quiet space, notice your own inner voice, not the voice that speaks your worries or your to-do list or your self-criticism, but the voice beneath that, the voice of your true self, the voice that whispers your deepest desires and your deepest wisdom. That voice is always there. That voice is waiting for you to listen. Mary Oliver heard that voice, and she would like you to hear it too. Now we must speak about Mary Oliver as a poet, for her poems are not merely beautiful arrangements of words. They are doorways. They are invitations. They are maps to a country that exists within you, but that you may have forgotten. Poetry, in its essence, is a way of speaking that transcends the limitations of ordinary language. Ordinary language is designed to be efficient. It is designed to convey information quickly. We use ordinary language to communicate facts, to coordinate actions, to pass messages back and forth. But poetry does something different. Poetry speaks to the heart. It speaks in images and sounds and silences. It speaks in the spaces between words. It speaks in a way that cannot be reduced to simple meaning. Each reader brings themselves to a poem, and therefore each reader receives something slightly different from it. In this way, poetry is like sacred texts in spiritual traditions. A single line from the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or the Buddhist sutras can be contemplated for hours or even for a lifetime, and new meanings will keep revealing themselves. Mary Oliver understood this power of poetry. She used poetry not to show off her linguistic skills or to create clever wordplay. She used poetry not to show off her linguistic skills or to create clever wordplay. She used poetry as a vehicle for truth. She used poetry to transmit experience, to point to reality as it is, beneath the surface of our usual perceptions. Consider her famous poem, The Journey, which I mentioned earlier. In this poem, the speaker begins surrounded by the voices of others, all telling her what she should do, how she should live. For years, she walks along the well-worn path that has been laid out for her. But eventually, she hears another voice calling her toward a different path, a path that appears to others as wilderness, as abandonment of duty and responsibility. The poem describes the courage it takes to turn away from those who love her, from those who believe they are guiding her rightly, and to follow her own true calling. And here's the key. The poem does not end with celebration or triumph. It ends with the speaker walking alone, not knowing where the path leads, hearing others calling behind her, trying to stop her. It ends in uncertainty and solitude. And yet, what becomes clear is that this is the correct path. This is the only path that can lead to genuine life. Because to live according to others' expectations is to live someone else's life. It is to be asleep. It is to never truly wake up. This poem functions like a sutra, a sacred teaching. On the surface, it is about a woman leaving her family. But on a deeper level, it is about awakening. It is about the spiritual path. It is about the necessity of self-knowledge and self-direction. It is about the Dharma of your own authentic life. And this is where the genius of Mary Oliver lies. She could convey profound spiritual truths through deceptively simple language and through images drawn from the natural world. She did not use abstract philosophical language. She did not create overly complicated metaphors. She spoke plainly and directly, and yet what she conveyed was infinitely deep. Let's look at another poem to understand this better. In Wild Geese, which we quoted earlier, Mary Oliver begins by telling us that we do not have to be good. We do not have to walk on our knees through deserts, repenting. This is a direct rejection of guilt-based spirituality, of the idea that our bodies and our desires are sinful, and that we must punish ourselves to be worthy. This is saying that your body is not your enemy. Your desires are not sinful. Your nature is not something to overcome, but something to be honored. Your nature is not something to overcome, but something to be honored. This is a teaching of acceptance and self-love that is radically different from the guilt and self-denial that so much religious teaching emphasizes. And then the poem continues, "Tell me about despair yours, and I will tell you mine." This is an invitation to honesty, to vulnerability, to the sharing of our true experience. It is said that we are all struggling. We all have despair, and in sharing this, we find connection and healing. Meanwhile, the world offers itself to your imagination. This line contains a profound teaching that the world is endlessly generous, endlessly offering itself to us if we have the imagination to receive it. And imagination here does not mean fantasy. It means the capacity to perceive, to envision, to open ourselves to what is real but beyond our usual perceptions. And the poem ends, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" This is the essential question. Not a question of judgment, not a question that implies there is a right answer that you must live up to, but a simple, genuine inquiry. What are you going to do? How are you going to spend this precious gift of consciousness that you have been given? This is the teaching that Mary Oliver returned to again. This is the Dharma she was transmitting. Not belief in a particular religion or philosophy, but an invitation to authenticity, to presence, to the sacredness of life itself. Now, in Buddhist practice, there is a form of meditation called mantra, or chanting, in which sacred sounds or words are repeated. The repetition of these sounds has a particular effect on consciousness. It attunes the mind to certain frequencies of awareness. It creates neural pathways that align with states of consciousness. Mary Oliver's poems work similarly. When you read them, when you speak to them aloud, when you allow them to resonate in your consciousness, they attune you to different frequencies of awareness. They quiet their anxious minds. They open their hearts. They remind you of what is real and true and precious. This is why many people find it helpful to read Mary Oliver's poems aloud or to listen to them being read aloud. The sound of the words matters. The rhythm and pacing matter. And when you rest in the space that the poems create, something shifts in your consciousness. As you continue to listen to this narrative, notice how the language is affecting you. Notice the slowing of your mind. Notice the settling of your nervous system. Notice the settling of your nervous system. These effects are not accidental. Language has been chosen deliberately to create these effects, to guide you toward rest, toward peace, toward presence. And this is what Mary Oliver's poems do, whether they are read silently or aloud. They guide us toward presence. They guide us toward the sacred. They guide us toward ourselves. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a concept called upaya, which is often translated as skillful means. It refers to the Buddha's ability to teach different things to different people, to use whatever means necessary to guide beings toward awakening. A teaching that works for one person might not work for another, so the Buddha was flexible and creative in his methods. Mary Oliver was also skilled in upaya. She knew how to use language, how to use images, how to use the power of poetry to reach people's hearts and minds. She knew that abstract philosophical treatises might not reach people who needed the teaching most. But a poem about a toad or a grasshopper or a heron, that could reach anyone. That could open hearts that had been closed. That could awaken consciousness that had been asleep. This is the gift of her poetry. This is why her words continue to touch people so deeply, years after they were written. Because they are not merely words. They are transmissions. They are vehicles for truth. And as you listen to this narrative, allow the words to work on you. Allow them to soften you, to open you, to attune you to the frequencies of presence, peace, and truth. You do not need to understand them with your thinking mind. Your deeper self will understand. Your being will resonate with what is real and true. We come now to one of the most profound and paradoxical teachings that Mary Oliver embodied and transmitted: the teaching of acceptance. And acceptance here does not mean passivity or resignation. It means something far more radical and transformative. In the Buddhist tradition, the concept that relates most closely to this is upaya shishya, which refers to the acceptance of how things are, without judgment or resistance. We suffer when we demand that reality be different than it is. Consider this: if you are anxious about something, the anxiety itself is already suffering. And then on top of that suffering, you often add more suffering by resisting anxiety, by judging yourself for being anxious, by demanding that you should not feel this way. So you have two levels of suffering: the original anxiety plus the resistance to the anxiety. Mary Oliver pointed to this with her poetry. She showed how we reject what we do not want, and in that rejection we create more pain. And she showed how, when we accept what is, when we stop fighting it, something miraculous happens. The intensity of it begins to shift. Now, this does not mean accepting injustice or abuse or actively harmful situations. This means accepting your response to difficulty, accepting your feelings, accepting the reality of the present moment as it is. From that place of acceptance, you can then respond with wisdom and compassion to what needs to be changed. There is a prayer that appears in the 12-step recovery programs, which is used by millions of people seeking healing from addiction. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This prayer encapsulates the teaching of acceptance combined with wise action. Mary Oliver understood this. She wrote about the necessity of letting go. Not because letting go is easy or pleasant, but because holding on creates suffering. In Blackwater Woods, which we referenced earlier, she teaches that to live in this world, you must be able to let things go. Not in anger or bitterness, but with grace. She writes of autumn leaves falling, of the summer ending, and she instructs, to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. This is the path of the Bodhisattva in Buddhism, the being who vows to help all sentient beings reach enlightenment. The Bodhisattva loves deeply, cares deeply, serves deeply, and yet the Bodhisattva does not cling desperately to outcomes. The Bodhisattva acts with full commitment and full heart, but without attachment to results. This is a very delicate balance. On one side is apathy and indifference, not caring about anything or anyone, which leads to a kind of spiritual deadness. On the other side is desperate clinging and grasping, caring so much about getting results that you become anxious and controlling, which leads to suffering. The middle way, as the Buddha taught, is to care deeply while holding outcomes lightly, to love fully while accepting loss, to commit completely while remaining open to letting go. Mary Oliver lived this way. She poured her heart into her writing, into her observation of nature, into her love for the world. And yet she did not cling to fame or success or recognition. When her work was not initially widely known, she did not become bitter. She continued to write, to pay attention, to serve the truth as she understood it. And eventually, her wisdom reached millions of readers. But by that time, she had already received what truly mattered, the peace that comes from living authentically, from following your own path, regardless of external recognition. This brings us to another profound teaching that we must explore, the Dharma of emptiness, or sunyata in Sanskrit. This is perhaps the most misunderstood teaching in Buddhism. It does not mean that nothing matters or that nothing exists. Rather, it means that nothing has an independent, permanent, unchanging essence. Everything is interdependent. Everything is constantly changing. Everything is empty of what we might call a solid self. Applied to our discussion, this means that the self that is so anxious about being good enough or achieving enough or being recognized enough, this self has no independent existence. This self is a construct, a story we tell ourselves. It is not solid or real or permanent. When we realize this, something shifts. We stop trying so desperately to preserve or enhance or prove this self. We stop fighting so hard to make ourselves into someone worthy. We recognize that we are already worthy simply by existing. We recognize that we are part of the interdependent web of existence, and that is enough. Mary Oliver pointed to this realization in many of her poems. She wrote about forgetting herself, about dissolving into nature, about the ego losing its grip. And in these moments of surrender, in these moments where the separate self loosens its hold, there is tremendous peace and freedom. In the Buddhist practice of meditation, there are techniques aimed at experiencing this directly. In Vipassana, or insight meditation, you observe your own thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations without attachment or judgment. As you continue to observe, you notice that everything is constantly changing. Thoughts come and go. Feelings rise and fall. Physical sensations shift and transform. Physical sensations shift and transform. Nothing stays the same. And if you observe closely, you may notice that there is no solid observer observing all of this. There is simply the observing happening, but no you are doing it. This is a profound realization. It is the experience of non-self, or anatta in Pali. And when this is realized directly, not merely as an intellectual concept, but as a lived experience, it is profoundly liberating. Because so much of our suffering comes from the illusion that there is a solid, separate self that needs to be defended and protected and enhanced. When that illusion falls away, we relax. We open, we become available to life in a way that was not possible before. Mary Oliver described similar experiences in her poetry. And through her poems, she invites us to have similar experiences. Now, acceptance also means accepting what is difficult. Accepting pain, grief, loss, failure. This is perhaps the hardest teaching of all, because we are naturally inclined to resist pain and seek pleasure. The Buddha taught that pain is part of existence. Trying to avoid it entirely is futile and creates more suffering. But accepting pain, being present with it, understanding its causes and conditions, this brings healing. But accepting pain, being present with it, understanding its causes and conditions, this brings healing. Mary Oliver wrote extensively about loss and grief. She wrote about the death of loved ones. She wrote about aging and the approach of death in her own life. And she did not write about these things in a morbid or depressed way. She wrote about them with acceptance and even with gratitude. She understood that loss is the price we pay for love. That grief is the measure of how deeply we have loved. This is the mature spirituality that Mary Oliver embodied. It is not about transcending pain or escaping the world. It is about being fully here, fully present, loving fully, while accepting that all things change and all beings die. It is about finding peace and even beauty within the reality of impermanence. And here is the paradox. When we stop resisting impermanence, when we stop demanding that things stay the same, we find more peace and even more capacity to love. because we are not wasting energy fighting reality. We are using our energy to be present, to appreciate, to love. As you rest here, consider what you might be resisting in your own life. What are you demanding should be different? What would happen if you accepted it? Not accepting it as permanent or as something you could never change, but accept the reality of it as it is right now. What would that feel like? What relief might come? Mary Oliver invites you to this acceptance, not as a way of giving up, but as a way of truly living. When you accept what is, you become free to respond to it wisely. When you stop fighting reality, you become capable of changing what needs to be changed and accepting what cannot be changed. This is the path to peace. This is the Dharma that Mary Oliver spent her life embodying and transmitting. We arrive now at one of the most revolutionary insights that Mary Oliver offered to the modern world, the recognition that everything is sacred. Not just mountaintops and cathedrals and formally designated holy places, but everything. A weed, your own breath, the ground beneath your feet, all of it is sacred. This teaching stands in stark contrast to much of Western religious tradition, which has tended to divide the world into sacred and profane. The sacred is what happens in church, what is formally designated as holy. Profane is everyday, the ordinary, the mundane. And in this division, the everyday is devalued. It is seen as less important, less worthy of our attention and our reverence. But Mary Oliver rejected this division completely. She wrote, "Tell me, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? With your one wild and precious life." There is no division in this question between sacred time and ordinary time. Your one wild and precious life includes all the moments, the simple ones and extraordinary ones, the ordinary ones and the dramatic ones. All of it is precious. All of it is sacred. In Zen Buddhism, there is a teaching called everyday mind is the way. It teaches that enlightenment is not something that happens in special moments or special places. It is available in any moment, in every place, every ordinary activity. Whether you are washing dishes or sitting in meditation, whether you are speaking with a friend or walking alone, you can be awake. You can be present. You can touch the sacred. Mary Oliver understood this completely. These are not romantic images of nature. These are the small, often overlooked aspects of the natural world. And in paying attention to them, in honoring them with her words, Mary Oliver elevates them. She shows that they are not less worthy of our attention than anything else. They are sacred. This is profoundly subversive teaching, because when you truly believe that everything is sacred, it changes how you live. You cannot go through the world exploiting and destroying things if you believe they are sacred. You cannot be casual and careless if you believe that every moment is precious. You cannot ignore injustice or cruelty if you believe that all beings have inherent worth and dignity. You cannot ignore injustice or cruelty if you believe that all beings have inherent worth and dignity. In the Buddhist tradition, this understanding is captured in the principle of ahimsa, which means non-harm or non-violence. It is the recognition that all beings, from the smallest insect to the largest animal, have the capacity to suffer and the desire to be happy. Therefore, we should treat all beings with respect and, as much as possible, avoid harming them. Mary Oliver embodied this principle. She did not harm creatures unnecessarily. She observed them with reverence. She saw their beauty, their struggles, their own precious lives being lived. And this recognition extended to all of life. She cared deeply about environmental justice, about the rights of animals, about the preservation of wild places. But her concern was not preachy or moralistic. She did not say, "You must care for the environment because it is the right thing to do." Instead, she showed us the beauty and wonder of the natural world. She showed us how interconnected we all are. And in that showing, in that offering of her own deep love and attention, she invited us into a similar love and attention. This is the function of poetry and of all true art, not to preach or lecture, but to transmit a way of seeing, a way of feeling, a way of being in the world. When you read Mary Oliver's poems, you are not told that you should love nature or respect creation. Rather, through her words, you begin to feel that love yourself. Rather, through her words, you begin to feel that love yourself. You begin to see what she sees. And in that seeing, your whole life begins to shift. Now, There is something about recognizing the sacred in the ordinary that has a particular effect on consciousness. When you truly see an ordinary thing as sacred, it is no longer ordinary. Time seems to slow down. Your perception becomes more refined. Colors become more vivid. Sounds become more distinct. You feel more alive. You feel more real. This is not a matter of projecting sacred qualities onto things. This is not a matter of projecting sacred qualities onto things. This is simply what happens when you pay genuine attention. When you slow down and truly see something, it reveals qualities that were always there, but that you were too distracted to notice. And here is the key. This revelation happens not because things have changed, but because your consciousness has changed. Your perception has changed. And as your perception changes, your entire experience of life changes. This is the promise that Mary Oliver offers to us, that if we pay attention, if we slow down, if we recognize the sacred in the ordinary, life becomes richer, deeper, more meaningful. We do not need to go anywhere or become anyone different. We simply need to wake up to what is already here. In fact, the great irony is that in our constant search for something greater, something more meaningful, we often miss the greatest meaning of all, the simple gift of existence itself. The simple miracle that we are alive, that we have consciousness, that we can perceive and appreciate and love. She wanted us to stop postponing our lives, stop putting off the recognition of sacredness until some future time when we have achieved enough or become enough. She wanted us to understand that this is it. This moment is it. This moment is it. This breath is it. This ordinary day is it. There is a Zen saying, the mundane is sacred. The sacred is mundane. At first, this seems like a contradiction, but in fact, it is pointing to the dissolution of the division between sacred and ordinary. It is saying that there is no division. All of life is sacred. All of experience is worthy of our attention and our reverence. And when you truly understand this, something opens in you. A kind of relaxation happens. You stop searching for something outside yourself, outside this moment. You recognize that what you have been searching for has been here all along, waiting for you to pay attention. This is the Dharma that Mary Oliver was teaching. This is the truth that she wanted to transmit. And as you rest in this narrative, as you allow these ideas to work on your consciousness, you are beginning to awaken to this truth as well. Now we come to a theme that permeates all of Mary Oliver's work, the theme of transformation. Not dramatic, sudden transformation, though that can happen, but gradual, deep transformation that comes through love and attention and the slow accumulation of awakened moments. The Buddha taught that within each being is the potential for awakening, for transformation, for liberation. Just as a seed contains within itself the potential to grow into a great tree, each of us contains within ourselves the potential for growth and change. The question is, what conditions will allow that potential to flourish? The question is, what conditions will allow that potential to flourish? Mary Oliver understood that one of the most powerful conditions for transformation is love. Not romantic love, though that can be transformative too, but a broader love, the love of life, the love of creation, the love that comes from recognizing that everything and everyone is interconnected and precious. She wrote many poems about love and about how love changes us. But notice that in Mary Oliver's poems, love is not something that happens to you passively, like being struck by lightning. Rather, it is something you do. It is practice. It is an engagement. You love something or someone by paying attention to them, by truly seeing them, by recognizing their uniqueness and their value. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a meditation called loving kindness or metta meditation. In this practice, you begin by cultivating feelings of love and compassion toward yourself, recognizing that you too deserve kindness and care. Then you extend these feelings to loved ones, then to neutral people, then to difficult people, and finally, to all beings everywhere. The purpose of this meditation is not to make you feel good, though it may have that effect. The purpose is to train the mind and heart in the fundamental recognition that all beings deserve kindness and compassion. It is to overcome the natural tendency towards self-centeredness and to develop what Buddhists call bodhicitta, the awakened heart that is devoted to the well-being of all. Mary Oliver practiced a similar expansion of love throughout her life. She began, perhaps, with the love of her own heart, her own inner life. Then she extended that love to the natural world, to creatures and plants and stones. She extended it to people she knew and loved. And through her work, through her writing, she extended it to all of us, to readers she would never meet, to people in times and places she could not know. And in doing this, in cultivating this vast and inclusive love, she was not diminishing her own particular loves. Rather, she was seeing them within a larger context. Her love for her partner was more precious because she understood it within the context of the vast love she felt for all existence. Her love of places was deeper because she recognized them as expressions of the sacred whole. This is transformation through love. This is how love changes us, not by making us less individual, less particular in our attachments, but by situating our loves within a larger love. The single star becomes more beautiful when you understand it as part of the vast cosmos. And here's the miraculous thing. When you open your heart to this larger love, you do not lose anything. You do not love your beloved any less. But you also love the stranger, the difficult person, the enemy, the creature that is usually considered worthless. Your love becomes like water. It still fills the individual vessels of your relationships, but it also recognizes that it is all part of the same ocean. Your love becomes like water. It still fills the individual vessels of your relationships, but it also recognizes that it is all part of the same ocean. Mary Oliver wanted us to understand this. She wanted us to transform through love. And the invitation is clear in her work. You do not have to be perfect or enlightened to begin this transformation. You simply must start paying attention. You simply have to start loving what you encounter. You simply must start honoring the sacred in the ordinary. And here's what neuroscience tells us. This kind of love and attention changes your brain. It rewires your neural pathways. Over time, as you practice attention and love, you literally become a different person. Your default way of perceiving shifts. Your baseline emotional state shifts. You become calmer, more open, more capable of joy. Mary Oliver knew this intuitively. She practiced it consistently, and so she was a transformed person. In photographs and in accounts of people who knew her, what comes through is a kind of radiant peace, a quiet joy, a deep presence. These were not traits she was born with. They were cultivated through decades of practice, of paying attention, of loving. And this same transformation is available to you. Not in some distant future when you have achieved enlightenment or become perfectly spiritual, but starting now, starting with this breath, starting with this moment, starting with genuine attention to whatever is in front of you. In Buddhist practice, there is a concept of bhavana, which means cultivation or mental development. It suggests that through repeated practice, through deliberate cultivation of certain qualities and states of mind, we develop new capacities and new ways of being. We are not fixed in who we are. We are always capable of growing, changing, transforming. Mary Oliver embodied this throughout her life. She was not the same person at 80 as she was at 20. She had grown wiser, deeper, calmer. She had transformed through continuous practice of attention and love. And she offers this possibility to us. She does not say, become like me. She does not say, you must achieve a certain state of consciousness. She simply says, pay attention. Love what you love. Live according to your own truth. And in doing these things, transformation happens. Not because you are forcing it or trying to become someone different, but because as you wake up, as you pay attention, as you open your heart, you naturally begin to change. You naturally begin to grow. You naturally begin to become more fully yourself, more fully alive, more fully human. This is the gift of transformation that Mary Oliver offers. This is the Dharma she teaches, that change is possible, that growth is possible, that awakening is possible, and that the means to this transformation is love and attention. We have come to a teaching that is perhaps one of the most challenging in all of spiritual traditions, and yet one of the most liberating. The teaching of learning to live with questions rather than demanding answers. Learning to be at home in uncertainty. Learning to trust the process of gradual unfolding rather than insisting on immediate clarity. This is captured beautifully in a letter that the poet Rilke wrote to a young poet. He advised the young man to live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. In other words, do not demand the answer now. Do not try to force clarity. Simply be present with the question. Hold it gently. Trust that understanding will come, if not today, then in the future, through the very act of living with the question. Mary Oliver lived this way. Many of her poems are framed as questions or as deep inquiries. She did not claim to have all the answers. Rather, she invited her readers to join her in the questioning, in the wondering, in the gradual unfolding of understanding. In the Buddhist tradition, this is related to the concept of not knowing or beginner's mind. It is the recognition that all our fixed ideas, all our preconceptions, all our certainties about how things are often prevented us from seeing reality as it is. True wisdom involves a kind of openness, a willingness to not know, a humility about the limits of our understanding. The Buddha famously taught that you should not accept his teachings based on authority or faith, but should test them yourself. He told his followers, "Do not believe anything on the authority of texts, nor on the basis of logic alone, nor on the basis of inference, nor on the appearance of things, nor based on desire alone. Rather, when you yourselves know a harmful thing, then renounce it. When you know a thing to be wholesome, embrace it." In other words, the Buddha encouraged his followers to live the questions, to test things in their own experience, to not accept anything based on blind faith. This is a radical teaching for someone claiming to be a spiritual guide. Instead of saying, "Believe me," he is saying, "Test me. Question me. Verify for yourself." Mary Oliver, likewise, did not try to convince us to believe her. She simply offered her observations and her insights, and she invited us to test them in our own experience. She offered her poems not as statements of fact, but as doorways for our own exploration and discovery. When you stop demanding certainty, when you stop insisting that everything must be perfectly clear and perfectly figured out, a tremendous burden falls away. You can relax in the uncertainty. You can trust the process. You can stop trying so hard to control outcomes and instead remain open and responsive to what unfolds. In fact, one of the deepest teachings of Buddhism is that the root cause of suffering is the illusion that we can control things, can ensure that what we want will happen and what we don't want will not happen. There is an enormous amount of uncertainty in existence. There are countless factors beyond our control. And when we demand absolute certainty and absolute control, we create suffering for ourselves. But when we accept the fundamental uncertainty of existence, when we learn to live the questions, when we remain open to surprise and discovery, something shifts. We become more flexible, more creative, and more resilient. When the unexpected happens, we can meet it with curiosity rather than with rigid resistance. Mary Oliver lived this way. She did not have all her poems written before she set out to write. She did not know what would come. She simply opened herself to the creative process and allowed words and images to emerge. She lived the questions of what it means to be alive, what it means to love, what it means to pay attention. And this is available to you as well. You do not need to have all the answers about your life. You do not need to have figured out exactly who you are or exactly what you should be doing. You can simply begin to live with the questions. You can ask yourself, what brings me joy? What am I genuinely curious about? What would it look like to pay more attention? What would it look like to pay more attention? What do I truly love? And you can live with these questions for a while without demanding immediate answers. You can allow them to work on your consciousness. You can remain open to the gradual revealing of answers through the very act of living. This is one of the most healing teachings for people living in our modern age. We live in a time of information overload, where everything is supposed to be available instantly. We are supposed to have our lives figured out, our careers planned, our entire future mapped out. We are supposed to know the answer to every question immediately. But the human heart operates differently. The human heart takes time to unfold. Wisdom is not downloaded like information. Wisdom is grown, cultivated, earned through the very process of living. Wisdom is grown, cultivated, earned through the very process of living. Mary Oliver knew this. She spent decades asking her questions, living her questions, and gradually arriving at a profound understanding of life and death and meaning and love. And in sharing that journey with us, In inviting us to live the questions alongside her, she offers us a different way of being. As you rest here in this quiet space, consider what questions you have been avoiding. What questions are you afraid to ask? What would happen if you did not allow yourself to know the answer, at least for now? What if you simply held the question gently and remained open to what might emerge? This is the teaching of living with questions. This is the wisdom of not knowing. This is the path to liberation from the exhausting demand that everything must be perfectly clear, perfectly figured out, perfectly controlled. She invites you to become more comfortable with uncertainty. She invites you to trust in the process of gradual unfolding. And in doing so, she offers you the possibility of a life that is more open, more alive, more authentic. Now we arrive at a teaching that may seem counterintuitive and even offensive to those who are in pain. The teaching that suffering has a function, that difficulty can be a teacher, that the very challenges that seem to destroy us can also transform us. In the Buddhist tradition, this is explored through the concept of dukkha, which is often translated as suffering, but more accurately means unsatisfactoriness or stress. The Buddha taught that suffering is intrinsic to existence. This might sound pessimistic, but it is liberating. Once you understand that suffering is part of existence, you stop expecting life to be otherwise. You stop blaming yourself for the pain. You stop demanding that everything should be easy and pleasant. And more importantly, the Buddha taught that suffering has a purpose. Suffering is a wake-up call. Suffering breaks through our denial. Suffering forces us to examine our lives and our beliefs and our assumptions. Suffering, if we meet it consciously, can be a powerful teacher. Mary Oliver understood this deeply. She had experienced suffering in her life. She was not sheltered or privileged in every way. She knew what it was to feel lonely, displaced, like an outsider. And instead of becoming bitter or cynical, she allowed this suffering to teach her. In her poem Wild Geese, she writes about a bird that has suffered, that is wounded or damaged. She does not erase the suffering or pretend it didn't happen. She does not erase the suffering or pretend it didn't happen. Instead, she honors it as part of the creature's story. She recognizes that the creature is still worthy, still valued, regardless of what it has endured. This is a profound compassion. It is not pity. It is not the condescending sympathy that says, "Poor creature, let me feel sorry for you." Rather, it is the compassion that says, "I see you. I see your suffering, and I recognize that despite everything, you are still precious. You still belong. You are still part of this world and worthy of love." This is what the Dalai Lama teaches about compassion. It arises not from pity, but from the recognition that all beings, including we, are struggling with suffering and deserve support and understanding. Now, here is a crucial distinction to make. Being compassionate towards suffering does not mean accepting injustice or allowing harm to continue. It means feeling the suffering deeply, understanding its causes, and responding wisely to address it. It means feeling the suffering deeply, understanding its causes, and responding wisely to address it. The Buddha himself was not a passive figure who simply accepted suffering. He taught that there are ways to reduce suffering, ways to heal it, ways to transcend it. But the first step in all of this is acceptance. The first step is to stop denying pain or running from it. The first step is to feel it, to be present with it, to understand it. Mary Oliver did this. She was present with difficulty. She did not flinch from it. And in this presence, in this willingness to face what is difficult, she developed wisdom and compassion. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a practice called Tonglen, which is Tibetan in origin. It is a practice of opening your heart to suffering, rather than closing it off. It seems counterintuitive. Why would you deliberately breathe in suffering? But it has a profound effect. It teaches you that you can open to suffering without being destroyed by it. It teaches you that suffering is workable. It teaches you that compassion is stronger than separation. Mary Oliver, through her attention and her writing, practiced a kind of Tonglen. She opened herself to the struggles of creatures, of nature, of existence itself. She opened herself to the struggles of creatures, of nature, of existence itself. She allowed these struggles to touch her heart. And she transformed them through her words, offering them back to the world as beauty, as meaning, as profound wisdom. This is what artists and writers and poets do at their best. They take the raw material of human experience, including suffering, and they transform it into something that connects us to each other, that shows us we are not alone, that reveals meaning in difficulty. Now, we must be careful not to romanticize suffering. We should work to reduce suffering where we can. We should work to heal trauma, to address injustice, to create conditions in which suffering is minimized. This is correct and important, but we must also acknowledge that some suffering is intrinsic to existence. Some suffering cannot be eliminated. Everyone will experience loss. Everyone will experience impermanence. Everyone will face uncertainty and the unknown. And by accepting this, in being present with it, in allowing it to teach us, we find not only peace, but also a kind of deepening and strengthening of character. Mary Oliver was such a person. She had faced difficulties and did not run from them. She faced them with an open heart and an inquiring mind. And as a result, she became deeper, wiser, more capable of love and understanding. And here is what contemporary neuroscience is discovering: that when we move toward difficulty rather than away from it, when we face our fears and our pain rather than avoiding them, we strengthen our neural pathways. We build resilience. We become more capable of handling future challenges. Mary Oliver invites us into this strength. She invites us to stop seeing suffering as something shameful or something that means something is wrong with us. She invites us to see difficulty as part of the path, as part of what makes us human, as something that can teach us and strengthen us if we meet it with consciousness and courage. This does not mean you should not seek help or healing when you are suffering. It means that alongside seeking healing, you can also be present with what is. You can also be curious about what the suffering is teaching you. You can also allow it to open your heart to compassion for all beings who suffer. This is the Dharma of suffering. This is Mary Oliver's teaching, that everything we experience, including what is difficult, can be alchemized into wisdom and love if we open ourselves to it. We come now to a practice that is both ancient and deeply modern, that appears in virtually all wisdom traditions, that transforms consciousness through something as simple as recognition, the practice of gratitude. Gratitude is not a feeling that arises spontaneously in most of us when faced with life's challenges. This was useful for survival when danger was constant. But in the modern world, this tendency toward negativity bias keeps us anxious and unhappy, focused on what is lacking rather than what we have. The Buddha taught mudita, which is often translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy, a practice of deliberately cultivating appreciation for what is good and beautiful. This is not forced positivity. It is not pretending that everything is fine when it is not. Rather, it is training the mind to notice and appreciate what is good, what is present. Mary Oliver lived in a state of constant gratitude. Mary Oliver lived in a state of constant gratitude. She was grateful for the privilege of being alive, grateful for her body, grateful for the natural world, grateful for the poets and teachers who had inspired her. And this gratitude was not just a feeling, it was an engine that drove her to pay attention, to witness, to honor what was precious. She wrote, "My work is loving the world." She did not say her work was changing the world, or improving the world, or fixing the world. Her work was simply loving it. And love in its essence is recognition. It is gratitude. It is the acknowledgement of value and worth. In the Buddhist tradition, gratitude is considered one of the noble qualities of mind. When your mind is filled with gratitude, there is no room for resentment, greed, or hatred. When you are appreciating something, you cannot simultaneously be hating it or wanting to exploit it. Gratitude brings the mind into harmony with reality as it is, rather than in conflict with it. Now, here is a beautiful teaching that emerges from modern psychology. Gratitude is trainable. You cannot force yourself to feel grateful, but you can deliberately practice noticing and appreciating good things. And through this practice, your brain learns to notice good things more easily. Your baseline mood shifts. You become a more grateful person. Mary Oliver did this unconsciously, perhaps, but consistently. She walked each day and noticed things. She paid attention to beauty. She wrote about what she appreciated. And in doing this practice repeatedly throughout her life, she became a radiant, grateful person. And this practice is available to you. Tonight, as you rest here, you might begin by by simply noticing something you are grateful for. Not in a forced way, but genuinely. It might be something small, the softness of your pillow, the fact that you have shelter, the ability to hear these words. Or it might be something larger, a person you love, your health, the beauty of nature. And you might notice, what happens when you genuinely appreciate something? How does your body respond? How does your mood shift? This is not fantasy or wishful thinking. This is your brain recognizing value. And when you practice this repeatedly, you begin to shift your baseline. You begin to see a world that is fundamentally generous, fundamentally beautiful, fundamentally worthy of appreciation. Not because you are denying difficulty or pain, but because you are recognizing that gratitude and difficulty can coexist. You can acknowledge what is painful while also appreciating what is good. This is the maturity that Mary Oliver achieved. This is the wisdom that allowed her to face mortality and loss without bitterness, to face injustice and destruction without despair, because she had trained her mind in gratitude. She had practiced recognizing and honoring what was precious. And she wants to share this practice with you. And she wants to share this practice with you. She wants you to experience the transformation that gratitude creates. She wants you to understand that this practice is not frivolous or escapist. It is, in fact, a form of activism. When you truly appreciate the natural world, you become devoted to protecting it. When you truly appreciate your body and your health, you care for it. When you truly appreciate other people, you treat them with kindness. Gratitude is not passive. Gratitude is revolutionary. Gratitude is love in action. She continued to appreciate each day, each moment. She was present with the difficulty, but not defined by it. She was present with the difficulty, but not defined by it. She was grateful to have lived, grateful for what she had experienced, grateful to have been able to share her gift with the world. This is the practice of gratitude, taken to its highest expression. This is dying while still fully alive, still fully appreciative, still fully grateful. And this is the invitation that is extended to you now, to practice gratitude, to train your mind in appreciation, to notice and honor what is precious and beautiful about your own life and about the world you inhabit. As you continue to rest here, let gratitude arise naturally. Let yourself feel appreciation for this moment, for this opportunity to listen, for the teachers and guides who have shown you the way, for the beauty of existence itself. And notice how this gratitude settles your nervous system, opens your heart, brings you closer to peace. In many religious traditions, prayer is understood as speaking to the divine, making requests, offering praise or worship. But in the deepest spiritual traditions, prayer is understood something differently. Prayer is communion. Prayer is the humble acknowledgement of something greater than yourself. Mary Oliver understood prayer in this deepest sense. She did not pray to petition God for things or to praise a distant deity. Rather, her prayer was attention itself. Her prayer was the act of truly seeing, truly witnessing, truly being present to the sacred that permeates all existence. In one of her poems, she writes, "It doesn't have to be the blue iris, it could be weeds in a vacant lot or a few weeds in a vacant lot or a few. Pay attention." And then at the end of the poem, pay attention, then come back. This is prayer. This is the invitation to wake up, to notice, to be present to what is here. Not to ask for something, but to receive what is already being offered. In Buddhist practice, meditation itself is sometimes understood as prayer. Not prayer in the sense of asking for something, but prayer in the sense of offering yourself, of being fully present, of opening to grace or to truth or to whatever names we give to that which is greater than ourselves. In other words, the sacred is not outside us, not something we must attain from somewhere else. In other words, the sacred is not outside us, not something we must attain from somewhere else. It is within us, and meditation, mindfulness, and presence are ways of accessing this inherent sacredness. Mary Oliver understood this. She believed that the sacred was within nature, within the natural world, within the ordinary creatures and processes of existence. And by paying attention to this, by really seeing it, by honoring it through her words and her presence, she was engaging in the deepest form of prayer. This is a teaching that is particularly important in our modern age, when many people have lost connection with traditional forms of prayer and with religious institutions, but who are still searching for meaning and connection with something sacred or transcendent. Mary Oliver offers an alternative form of prayer that does not require belief in any religion, that does not require going to any place, that requires only presence and attention. This form of prayer is available to everyone. It is available right now. Consider this. In the very moment that you are reading or listening to these words, you are engaged in prayer. You are bringing your attention to something. You are opening yourself to receiving meaning. You are in the posture of receptivity and reverence. This is prayer. Or consider this. When you go for a walk and truly notice the beauty around you, when you feel genuine appreciation and wonder, you are engaged in prayer. When you sit with someone who is suffering and truly listen, when you open your heart to their pain, you are engaged in prayer. When you eat and genuinely taste your food, when you feel gratitude for it, you are engaged in prayer. Prayer, understood this way, is not something you do at times or in particular places. Prayer is a way of being. Prayer is an attitude of reverence and attention that you bring to your life. The Sufi poet Hafiz wrote, "Every moment I am is a prayer." This is what Mary Oliver understood. Every moment of genuine presence, every moment of true attention, every moment of authentic connection is a prayer. Now, what is the effect of understanding life this way? What happens when you begin to see every moment as potentially sacred, every encounter as potentially a form of prayer? Something shifts. You slow down. You become more intentional. You treat things with more care and respect. You treat other people with more kindness and attention. You treat yourself with more compassion. You begin to see how you spend your time, what you give your attention to, who you spend time with, how you speak of this as a form of prayer. This is why Mary Oliver was so careful about how she spent her time. She protected her time for walking, for writing, for being present. She understood that this time was sacred. She understood that in giving her full attention to these things, she was engaged in the form of prayer. And she understood that the time and attention she gave were also gifts. When she wrote a poem, she was offering a prayer. When she shared her observations and insights, she was offering a prayer. When she opened her heart to her readers, she was offering a prayer. This is what it means to live a sacred life. This is what it means to live a sacred life. Not to do grand heroic things or to achieve fame or success, but bring full presence and full attention and full reverence to whatever you are doing. To treat every moment, every encounter, every action as sacred. Mary Oliver invites you to this form of prayer. She invites you to understand your own life as a prayer. She invites you to see that every moment is an opportunity to be fully present, to be fully alive, to be fully in touch with what is sacred. And this form of prayer does not require faith in any belief system. It requires only attention. It requires only presence. It requires only the willingness to be here now, to be open, to be receptive to the beauty and mystery of existence. As you continue to rest here in this quiet space, begin to understand your own breathing as a form of prayer. Each breath is a sacred gift that allows you to be alive. Each breath is an exchange with the greater web of life. You breathe in what the plants have offered, and you breathe out what the plants will receive. This is prayer. This is communion. This is the sacred act of being alive. We arrive now at what is perhaps the most important teaching that Mary Oliver offers to each of us individually, the call to authenticity. The invitation to live your own life, not the life that others have decided for you, not the life that society expects you to live, but your own true life. This teaching appears throughout her work, but it is perhaps most clearly expressed in The Journey, which she wrote late in her life. In this poem, she describes a moment when she hears her own voice calling her toward a different path, away from the path that all the important people in her life expect her to walk. The poem captures the difficulty of this choice. The people who love her plead with her not to go. They tell her she is making a mistake, that she is being selfish, that she is throwing away everything she should value.
Her own deepest knowing is telling her that this is the path she must take. And so she goes. She walks into the wilderness. And the poem ends there, not with triumph or with certainty of success, but with her walking into the unknown, following her own voice. This is authenticity. This is not rebellion for its own sake. It is not stubbornness or selfishness.
It is the recognition that there is a truth within you, a voice, a knowing that wants to express itself, and that this truth is more important than others' approval or comfort. This truth is your own Dharma. In Buddhist philosophy, Dharma refers to the universal law that governs existence, but it also refers to the role or function that each being has. Your Dharma is your path, your purpose, your expression of life. It is not the same as everyone else's Dharma. Your Dharma is unique to you. And the Buddha taught that living according to your Dharma, living authentically, is essential to liberation. You cannot achieve enlightenment or deep peace by trying to live someone else's life. You cannot find freedom by following a path that is not truly yours. Mary Oliver lived according to her Dharma. She became a poet, though this was not a safe or practical choice. She lived simply, though she could have pursued wealth and status. She devoted herself to paying attention and to writing, though others might have encouraged her to do something else. She lived the life that was truly hers to live. And in doing so, she discovered something remarkable, that in living authentically, in honoring her own truth, she was ultimately serving others more deeply than she could have by conforming to others' expectations. Her authentic expression became a gift to the world. Her poems touched and transformed the lives of millions of people, precisely because they came from her genuine truth. This is the paradox of authenticity. When you try to please everyone else, when you try to be what others want you to be, you serve no one well. But when you are willing to disappoint others and to pursue your own truth, when you have the courage to be yourself, you become capable of offering something genuine and valuable to the world. Now, this does not mean that you should be selfish or that you should ignore the needs and feelings of others. This does not mean that you should do whatever you want, regardless of the impact on others. Mary Oliver was not selfish. She was deeply ethical. She cared about others, but she cared about them as someone who was being true to herself, not as someone who had abandoned herself trying to please them. In the Buddhist tradition, there is the concept of right livelihood. It means engaging in a form of work or life that does not cause harm and that is in alignment with your values. It means not engaging in work that requires you to act unethically or to harm others, even if that work is profitable or prestigious. Mary Oliver understood this. She refused jobs that would have paid well if they required her to act contrary to her values. She maintained her integrity even when it was inconvenient or costly. She lived simply so that she could maintain her freedom to live according to her values. This is teaching for our time. In a culture that constantly pressures us to be a certain way, to look a certain way, to have a certain kind of success, to value certain things, during all this pressure, Mary Oliver reminds us that we have the right to be ourselves. We have the right to live according to our own truth. We have the right to disappoint others in service to our own authenticity. And notice that she is not saying this angrily or defiantly. She is saying it gently, as an invitation. She is not raging against society. She is simply offering her own example of someone who chose authenticity and discovered that in doing so, she found peace and purpose. Now, here's a crucial understanding. Being authentic does not mean being selfish or ignoring others. Being authentic means being clear about your own truth, your own values, your own gifts, and then offering those gifts in service to the world. It means saying no to things that are not truly yours to do, so that you have energy and presence to say yes to the things that are. Mary Oliver said not to many things. She said no to fame-seeking, to accumulating wealth, to living in expensive cities, to the many distractions that could have consumed her time and energy. And in saying no to these things, she had the space and peace and clarity to say yes to her true path, to being a poet, to paying attention, to sharing her gifts. And she invites you to do the same. She invites you to ask yourself, what am I doing because I think I should, because others expect it? What would I do if I were brave enough to be myself?
What is the truth within me that wants to be expressed? These are not easy questions. They may challenge the life you have built. They may disappoint people who care about you. They may require you to make difficult choices.
But according to Mary Oliver, according to the wisdom traditions, according to your own deepest knowing, these questions are the most important ones you can ask. Because you have one wild and precious life, and it is yours to live. And if you do not live it authentically, if you do not bring your full self, your true self, to your own life, then you will have missed the whole point.
You will have spent your years trying to be someone else instead of becoming fully yourself. As you rest here in this quiet space, allow yourself to feel the call to authenticity. Allow yourself to imagine what it might look like to live more truly. Allow yourself to feel what it is within you that wants to be expressed, wants to be lived, wants to be shared with the world. You do not need to answer these questions perfectly right now. You do not need to have your whole life figured out. But you can begin to listen. You can begin to feel into your own truth. You can begin to trust that something within you knows the way. Mary Oliver spent her whole life listening to this inner knowing. And she found that it led her to a beautiful, meaningful, purposeful life. She found that in being true to herself, she became capable of offering genuine service to the world. She found that authenticity was not selfish but liberating and generative. And this same possibility is available to you. We come now to the final movement of our journey through Mary Oliver's wisdom, the contemplation of death, and yet paradoxically, the discovery that genuine living is possible only when we fully accept the reality of impermanence and mortality. Mary Oliver died in 2019, at the age of 83 from lymphoma. She had lived a full life. She had been able to express herself fully. She had witnessed beauty and the mystery of existence. And she was able to approach her death with the same presence, the same acceptance, the same gratitude that she had brought to her life. In her poem When Death Comes, she writes, "When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me, and snaps the lock on the alligator leather suitcase, when death comes, like a hungry bear in autumn, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what is it all about? What is it all for? I don't want to end up simply having visited this world."
This is not a poem about fearing death or denying death. It is a poem about wanting to have truly lived, to have been present, to have been awake. It is expressing the hope that when death comes, she will be able to say that she has lived fully, not just visited. In the Buddhist tradition, death is contemplated as a profound teacher. The Buddha taught that the awareness of death is not depressing, but liberating. When you truly understand that you will die, that your time is limited, that this moment might be your last, something shifts. Your priorities become clear. What seemed so important suddenly seems trivial. What you had taken for granted suddenly becomes precious. The Buddha taught a practice called Maranasati, death meditation, in which you deliberately contemplate your own mortality. Not morbidly, not in a depressed way, but clearly, directly, honestly. You contemplate the fact that you will die. You contemplate the fact that the time of your death is uncertain. You contemplate the fact that only your own practice and your own effort will help you at the time of death. The purpose of this contemplation is not to make you depressed. The purpose is to wake you up.
When you truly face the reality of your own mortality, when you stop denying it and start accepting it, you naturally want to live more fully. You naturally want to be more present. You naturally want to spend your time on what matters. Mary Oliver had clearly done this contemplation. She had clearly faced the reality of impermanence and mortality. And as a result, she lived with a kind of urgency and passion that is rare. She was present. She was awake. She was fully alive right up until the end. Now here is what is interesting. Even though Mary Oliver has died, her presence continues. Her words continue to teach.
Her poems continue to transform people's consciousness.
She has left a legacy that extends beyond her individual lifetime. This is what the Buddha taught about the nature of consciousness and existence. Nothing truly ceases. Everything transforms. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. The Buddha taught that we should think of our existence not as isolated individual consciousnesses, but as waves in a vast ocean of consciousness. When a wave subsides back into the ocean, the wave ceases to exist in its form, but the water that composed the wave remains. The ocean remains. It is only the form that changes. And similarly, though Mary Oliver's body is no longer alive, the wisdom she expressed, the love she radiated, the beauty she created continue. These ripple outward through all those who have been touched by her work. These continue to influence the world. There is a concept in Buddhism called Buddha fields or pure lands, which refers to the idea that an enlightened being creates around themselves, through their presence and their work, a field of healing and transformation. Even after that has passed, the field continues. People can continue to receive blessings and teachings from it. Mary Oliver created such a field. Her poetry, her teaching, her presence has created an actual energetic and intellectual presence in the world that continues to teach and to transform. And you are receiving that teaching right now, years after her death, through these words. This is the legacy of authenticity. This is what happens when you give your whole heart to your work. This is what happens when you spend your life in genuine service to truth and beauty. Your work becomes immortal. It continues to ripple outward through time. And this is available to you as well. The work you do in this lifetime, if it comes from your authentic self, if it serves truth and love and beauty, will continue to ripple outward. It will touch people you never meet. It will have effects that extend far beyond your own lifetime. This is not about seeking fame or recognition. This is not about trying to be remembered. This is simply about recognizing that everything you do has consequences that extend into the future, that touch others, that matter in ways you cannot fully perceive. Mary Oliver understood this.
She did her work not for recognition, but because it was her Dharma, her calling, her path. And in doing her work authentically, she created something that transcends her individual lifetime. Now, as we contemplate this, and as we approach the conclusion of this narrative, I invite you to contemplate your own mortality, your own death, in the way that Mary Oliver and the Buddhist tradition invite us to. Not in a depressed or fearful way, but clearly and honestly. Imagine that you are near the end of your life. Imagine that you are looking back at the years you have lived. What would you want to say about how you spent your time? What would you want to have done? What would you want to have expressed?
In the end, when you are facing death, what will matter? Will it matter that you had more money or more possessions? Will it matter if you impress people or achieve status? Or will what matter be that you loved fully, that you were present with the people you cared about, that you expressed your authentic self, that you paid attention to the beauty of existence? Mary Oliver answers clearly. What matters is that you truly lived, that you were awake, that you paid attention, that you loved, that you did not waste your wild and precious life on things that did not matter. And she wants you to know this not through abstract philosophy but through the lived example of her own life. She wanted you to see how she lived, and to be inspired to live similarly. As you continue to rest here in this quiet space, let yourself feel both the reality of mortality and the preciousness of life. Let yourself feel the urgency and the beauty of the present moment. You will not be here forever. This breath, this moment will not come again. How do you want to spend it? How do you want to be? This is the final teaching that Mary Oliver offers. This is the Dharma of mortality understood as a gateway to authentic, fully alive living. And now, dear listener, as we approach the conclusion of this long journey through Mary Oliver's wisdom, we arrive at the place where all paths ultimately lead to this moment, this breath, this eternal now. Everything that has been spoken about wonder, attention, authenticity, presence, acceptance of impermanence, the sacredness of ordinary life, all of it points toward one realization: that life is only happening now. The past is only memory. The future is only imagination. The only place where anything is happening is at this present moment. And yet, how often do we miss this? How often do we spend the present moment worrying about the past or the future? How often do we fail to notice that life is happening right now? The Buddha taught something he called Dhamma, or the natural law. And the heart of Dhamma is this: everything arises in dependence on conditions, everything is impermanent, and true peace comes from accepting this and resting in the present moment with full awareness. This is what Mary Oliver did. She rested in the present moment.
She paid attention to what was happening now. She did not spend her time regretting the past or planning the future.
She was here. She was now. She was present. And in that presence she found everything she was looking for. She found joy. She found meaning. She found connection. She found the sacred. Now, as you listen to this narrative, as you rest in this quietness, I invite you to do what Mary Oliver did. I invite you to arrive at this moment, Not with effort or striving.
Not with judgment or expectation, simply with gentle awareness. Notice your breath. It is happening now. Notice the physical sensations of your body. They are happening now. Notice the sounds around you. They are happening now. Notice the thought stream of your mind. It is happening now. Everything is happening now. And this now contains everything. It contains the entire universe, because the universe is expressed through this moment. It contains your whole life, because your life only exists in this moment. It contains all of your meaning and purpose and joy, because these only exist in this present moment. When you arrive at this now fully, when you arrive here with your complete attention and your complete presence, you discover something remarkable. You discover that everything is already all right. Not because your external circumstances are perfect, they are not, but because you have stopped fighting. You have stopped demanding that things be different. You have simply arrived at this moment and received it as the gift that it is. This is peace. This is what all beings are seeking. This is what all the spiritual practices and teachings ultimately point toward. Mary Oliver knew this. She lived here, in this eternal now, in this eternal presence. And this is what she wants to give to you. Not through concepts or ideas, though ideas can point the way, but through the actual transmission of her presence and her consciousness through these words. As you listen to these words, something is happening in your consciousness. The words create a particular state of awareness. They are slowing you down. They are bringing you into presence. They are helping you to arrive at this moment. And at this moment, you are safe. In this moment, you are at home. In this moment, you are complete. In this moment, you are exactly where you need to be. There is nothing you need to achieve or become. There is nothing you need to fix or improve. You are already enough. You are already precious. You are already part of the great sacred web of existence. This is what Mary Oliver saw. This is what she wanted everyone to see. That we are all enough. That we are all worthy. That we are all part of something vast and beautiful and eternal. And in seeing this, in truly seeing this, something opens in your heart. A kind of relaxation, a kind of coming home. A kind of deep peace that does not depend on external circumstances. This is the true rest that we have been journeying toward. This is not the rest of sleep, though sleep may come. This is the rest of arriving, the rest of no longer searching, the rest of being fully present to the now.
And as you rest here in this presence, as you continue to breathe, as you continue to listen, allow yourself to feel the truth of what Mary Oliver knew, that everything you need is here. That everything you are seeking is within this moment. That life is not something that happens in the future when you have achieved more or become more. Life is happening now. Mary Oliver spent her entire life pointing toward this now, inviting everyone she met, everyone who read her words, into this now. And she is still doing it, still inviting you even now, even though these words are being shared hours or days or years after they were written. Because the truth does not age. The now is eternal. The presence that Mary Oliver touched is available now, just as it was when she was alive, just as it will be when we too have passed from this form. This is the greatest gift that anyone can give. To help another being wake up to the reality of the present moment, to the miracle of being alive, to the sacredness of now. And this is what has been offered to you throughout this journey. The gift of Mary Oliver's way of seeing, the gift of attention, the gift of wonder, the gift of presence. Receive it. Allow it to transform you. Allow yourself to be awakened by it. And then in gratitude, allow yourself to pass this gift on to others. Allow yourself to become a mirror for Mary Oliver's wisdom. Allow yourself to live as she lived. Present, awake, loving, grateful. And so, dear listener, we come to what might seem like an ending, though it is in truth a beginning. For the journey through these words has been nothing more than an invitation. An invitation to step off the page or away from the speaker, and into your own direct experience of what Mary Oliver has taught. All the wisdom that has been shared is not meant to be believed in authority. It is not meant to be understood intellectually alone. It is meant to be lived, to be tested, to be discovered through your own experience. Mary Oliver invited me to this. She would not want you to accept her words merely because she was a poet, or because many people have found wisdom in her work. She would want you to go and see for yourself. She would want you to pay attention.
She would want you to ask your own questions and discover your own answers. And so the real work begins now. Not here, but in your own life. In the moments you live after this narrative concludes. In the choices you make about where you put your attention. In the way you approach the people and the world around you. You might begin simply. You might take a walk tomorrow morning. Or this afternoon if you're listening during day. You might step outside and truly notice something. Not just glance at it, but really see it. A leaf, a stone, a bird, a flower, whatever attracts your attention. And as you notice it, as you really see it, allow yourself to feel what Mary Oliver felt. The wonder, the gratitude, the recognition of its sacredness. Stay with this feeling for a moment. Rest in it, and then you might ask yourself the question that Mary Oliver asked. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Not all at once, not as if you need to have the answer figured out, but simply hold the question. Let it work on your consciousness. Let it reveal itself gradually as you live. You might also consider finding some of Mary Oliver's poems and reading them slowly. Not to analyze them or understand them intellectually, but to let them work on you. To let the words affect your consciousness.
To open yourself to the transmission they carry, you might consider beginning a simple meditation practice. Sitting quietly for just 10 or 15 minutes each day, bringing your awareness to your breath, to your body, to the present moment. This practice, done consistently, can transform your consciousness. It can attract you to the frequency of peace and presence that Mary Oliver lived in. You might consider noticing one thing each day that you are grateful for. Really feeling the gratitude. Allowing your consciousness to be shaped by appreciation and wonder rather than by worry and lack. These are simple practices. They do not require special knowledge or special circumstances. They are available to anyone, anywhere, at any time.
And yet they are revolutionary. They can transform your entire relationship to your life. Mary Oliver did not do anything extraordinary. She did not live in a monastery or retreat from the world. She lived in a house with her partner. She worked, she wrote.
She walked. She paid attention. That was all. And in doing these simple things with full presence and full heart, she lived an extraordinary life. And you can too. Not by copying her life exactly, but by capturing the essential quality of her way of being, the quality of attention, of wonder, of authenticity, of presence. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a teaching called the gateless gate. It refers to the fact that there is no gate preventing you from entering enlightenment or awakening, or whatever name you give to the deepest truth. The only barrier is your own belief that there is a barrier. The only thing preventing you from being fully awake right now is the thought that you need to become something different, that you need to achieve something, that you need to be somewhere else. You are already here.
You already have everything you need. The gate is open. You can walk through it right now. And walking through means simply continuing, doing what you are doing, paying attention, being present, living your life with all of the presence and love and gratitude that you can muster. In the end, this is what Mary Oliver's entire teaching is pointing toward, the recognition that you are already awake, already precious, already worthy. You just need to wake up to that fact. The rest is simply practice. It is the practice of returning again to the present moment. It is the practice of paying attention. It is the practice of love and gratitude and authentic living. Will you do this? Will you accept the invitation that Mary Oliver is extending through these words? Will you commit to paying attention? Will you commit to wondering? Will you commit to living your one wild and precious life? There is no right or wrong answer. There is only your answer, your choice, your path. But know that if you choose to wake up, if you choose to pay attention, if you choose to live authentically, you will find that Mary Oliver's wisdom is not merely poetry. It is a map. It is a transmission. It is an actual guide that can help you navigate toward the life you truly want to live. And we, all of us who have been touched by her work, all of us who have heard her call, are companions with you on this path. We are together in this practice of waking up, of paying attention, of learning to love the world and ourselves. Mary Oliver is still here. She is here in the words that have been shared. She is here in the hearts of all those who have been touched by her wisdom. She is here in the presence you bring to each moment. She is here for your attention. She is here in your love. And so she continues her work. She continues to teach. She continues to invite. She continues to point the way toward the sacred, toward the present moment, toward the gift of being alive. Will you answer her call? As we draw to the end of this long journey, dear listener, we return now to where we began, to rest, to quietness, to the simple fact of your own breathing. You have journeyed through many ideas and teachings. You have been invited into the wisdom of Mary Oliver and into the ancient teachings of Buddhist philosophy.
You have considered wonder and presence and authenticity and love. You have contemplated impermanence and mortality and the eternal now. And now, having heard all of this, it is time simply to rest. To let the mind settle. To let the heart open. To let the body relax into sleep or into deep peace.
There is nothing more you need to do. There is nothing more you need to understand. You have received what was to be received. The seeds have been planted. They will continue to grow in your consciousness, revealing themselves in their own time, in their own way. For now, simply rest.
Simply be. Simply breathe. Feel the weight of your body being held by whatever is supporting you. Feel the warmth of your blankets, the softness of your pillow. Feel the peace of this quiet moment, this space that has been created for rest and for deep listening. Mary Oliver is here with you at this moment. Not as a separate being, but as a presence, a frequency of consciousness, a transmission of peace. Receive this. Allow yourself to be held by it. You are safe. You are at peace. You are home. Let yourself drift now. Let yourself sink deeper into rest. Let your awareness become softer. Let your thoughts slow and fade like stars disappearing at dawn. There is nothing to think about. There is nothing to figure out. There is only this moment. Only this breath. Only this peace. Rest now, dear listener. Rest in wonder. Rest in presence. Rest in the knowledge that you are part of something vast and beautiful and eternal. Rest in the knowledge that you are precious, that you are worthy, that you are enough. Mary Oliver watches over you. The universe holds you. All of existence celebrates your presence. Rest. Sleep well.
Dream peacefully, and when you wake, carry with you the gifts that have been offered. Carry the invitation to pay attention. Carry the recognition of wonder. Carry the knowledge that this one wild and precious life is yours to live, yours to love, yours to awaken to. The journey continues.
But for now, simply rest. Peace be with you, dear listener. Now and always. Silence. Eternal, gentle, holding peace.